Hello people, you can call me Ishmael. I'm coming to you from downtown Savannah near the riverfront. Just a few minutes before I go to work to explain to you why The Acolyte failed. It failed because Leslye Headland did not have the writing chops to sell a story from her point of view to the majority audience. The point of view of being essentially a minority. If you're a minority, the exact reason doesn't matter. You're only out from the status quo, with the main detail being the degree of negative reaction that you receive. And at best, you are a curiosity. In the middle, you are a pariah. And at worst, you are the unclean to be purged. Yes, purging the unclean is a Warhammer 40k reference. From that point of view, it should be blatantly obvious why Acolyte was written the way it was. Because if you're a minority, you have no investment in the status quo, because the status quo to you is a hostile environment. And the heroes of the status quo are simply enemies. See, if I actually knew how to do video editing, I'd have had the theme song for Arcane kick in right there. And I'm going to come back to Arcane in a minute. However, that point of view, the minority point of view, is not one that the majority of people are going to identify with. Even when society has wronged them, injustice does affect everybody. It isn't really wronging them because of what they are. So they don't see society as a fundamentally hostile environment, and are unlikely to identify with a story that does that. It treats the status quo as hostile. Minorities often identify with the villains because it is the villains of stories who are out to change society at the least and burn it down at the most. Heroes are agents of the status quo. The exceptions to this rule are stories that are normally the dystopias. Stories where the society, the world, the status quo that we are witnessing is meant to be seen as corrupt from the point of view of the audience. The movie Demolition Man, one of my favorites from the 90s, starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Pre-Blade Wesley Snipes is a good example of this. Closer to modern would be The Hunger Games. What Leslye tried to do was inject dystopian elements into the characters, the Jedi, who are the closest thing to being objectively good in Star Wars. While the Jedi are, even by George Lucas's own hands, by no means perfect, they're the closest thing to an objective good. And Leslye tried to make them the bad guys, the source of corruption. The tragedy is that the story she tried to tell has on some level already been told in Star Wars. The Knights of the Old Republic comics from Dark Horse open with a group of Jedi Masters killing their Padawans, all but one, because they saw a vision of the future that promised that someone in a spacesuit like theirs would be the doom of the Old Republic. Not going to tell you who the actual doom is. You're going to have to hunt down either the trade paperbacks or the old individual visual issues of the Knights of the Old Republic comics to figure that out. Another thing is that the story that Leslye already was trying to tell already exists. She even mentioned it, if I'm not mistaken, as one of her sources of inspiration. League of Legends Arcane. On Netflix. You gotta really work really hard to get the majority on board with burning everything down. Arcane did the work. How many normal people in the audience, even those among you who consider yourselves based and anti-woke, were cheering as Jinx essentially nuked the capital of Zon because of the journey you went on with that girl? It didn't matter that Jinx is diagnosably mentally unstable. You know what she's been through. You know how Zon treats Piltover. You empathize with Jinx. You empathize with her experiences and the experiences of the people living in Piltover, the Undercity. So even if you don't agree, some part of you has to cheer as Jinx fires. How many people were cheering for Osha at the end of Acolyte. You see, while there are toxic, sexist, racist, homophobic fans, they themselves are kind of minority. There are not enough of them. No matter how much supposed and actual review bombing is done to crash a show, Star Wars The Acolyte crashed and burned because the general audiences did not connect with the story. That's why it failed. Okay, we're at the end. I've gotta start working. I have a stutter, goddammit. I spoke perfectly smoothly for most of my life, then 29, started tripping over my own tongue. I hate this so much. So here come the obligatories. Like, comment, subscribe, share. If enough of you do this, I'll be able to actually hire somebody who knows video editing, because I don't, and I really ain't got the time right now to learn. Too busy grinding.